President Obama's trip to Flint. It was announced that President Obama will be traveling to Flint next Wednesday. The news, MSNBC earlier today said this week, it's next week, it's May 4th, he's going to Flint. And he's going in response to a letter from an 8-year-old girl who has been affectionately dubbed Little Miss Flint. This child is adorable. Y'all need to look her up. She is too cute. But she wrote to him on behalf of one of the children in Flint who's been affected by, you know, the water crisis. And I've shared with you guys before, you know, I have my own water issue, not nearly as long or as scary as what is happening in Flint at all. But I do know what it is to raise a family on bottled water. It's very, very difficult. I think when I was looking at, I was going through looking at her mom's Twitter page, you know, just kind of looking and seeing updates and stuff, what's going on and what she's doing. Again, this child is 8. She's light years ahead of many of us. And they were talking about how many gallons of water it took to give the kids a bath, right? Because this Flint crisis is not just about ingestion of water. It's the same thing we went through in Charleston, West Virginia. It's not just about ingestion. There's so many other ways about it in terms of exposure. We've seen reports from people who have different conditions where they can't wash in the water, all types of stuff, right? You can't drink it, you can't ingest it, you can't use it for anything. We don't know. I was talking with one of our producers, JP, earlier, and it's like we don't even know like what happens like with washing your clothes, like, you know, I mean, there's so much that they still don't know. There's actually a lawsuit by residents of Flint against, I believe it's the EPA. Way to go, because the EPA, we could say a lot of things, but the EPA does not necessarily always handle these situations properly. I know the Michigan Department of Environmental Protection, I think theirs is a DEP as well. But the Michigan Department has also come under fire a lot, you know, for the handling. There is no safe level of lead in water. Let's just be clear, right? There are certain standards, there are safe levels and things like that, but there isn't one for lead in water. And we've heard stories of how disastrous lead exposure is for children, particularly under the age of 6. So this is an ongoing public health crisis. And, you know, we're not seeing the massive news coverage. They're not battling over Michigan anymore, so it's not really a big topic. You know, Bernie Sanders had mentioned it most recently at his town hall. But the mayor, you know, was given like a lot of attention from Secretary Clinton when she was there. And yet and still, there's still been stalling. The Republicans, along with Senator McCaskill, have like dropped the ball and are refusing to release funds. There was another hearing today. I didn't get a chance to really look into what the outcome of that was. But hopefully the funds necessary to really address the issue in Flint will be released. Hopefully President Obama's visit will actually help further that process along. I know that there was somebody released, and there were some houses, things like about 30 or so houses, were actually completely redone with piping out to the street. But they're still trying to coat and seal pipes at this point. I mean, there's a lot that's still going on. So we can't forget about these issues, right? And as community leaders and organizers, we have to leverage as much as we can to make sure our issues get addressed. So there were several different groups. I tweeted out something earlier about, so it takes, you know, one of the babies basically to guilt him into going. President Obama, people have written to him, people have asked him, people have protested outside the White House. Justice League New York wrote a letter about a month or so ago. That's Harry Belafonte's organization. There are tons of groups that have reached out and urged the president to go to Flint. You know, he was in Detroit when he announced his support for Flint. He's in Detroit in January. Flint and Detroit are a hop, skip, and a jump, but if you're on Air Force One, it's like super quick, right? He was in Detroit at an auto show and did not go to Flint. So, I mean, it's a huge public health crisis happening. And let's be clear, the situation in Flint, it's egregious. And we talk about, you know, the different bad actors from the governor on down. But we have an issue with our infrastructure with poison water across the country. They found high levels of lead in water in Newark, including affecting city schools, you know, Louisiana, Mississippi. I mean, it's widespread. It's a widespread issue that needs to be addressed. So we really do need to be looking at how do we have an aging infrastructure, and it definitely needs to be not only invested in, but it's a public health crisis. So we need to make sure people have the tools, access, and resources to actually address these issues for their family as well. You know, there's been like some credits given for people for the water bills because yes, they're still being charged for this poison water, right? They've been given credits, but It's an issue. And like I said, I know what it is to, I haven't done it for a 2-year period, but 5 months was enough for me. Right. And I'm blessed that I was able to leave that situation. You know, we didn't, the kids, I used the camp shower. You know, you put a little water, you boil the water on the stove, you put some water in the camp shower, one of those little things with the little hose that you use when you go camping. You put that up in the shower, they soap up, and then they rinse off. And, you know, I could do that, like one bottle would wash both kids. And it was stressful though, you know, washing dishes, and you use the rinse water. You warm your water up for you wash your dishes, then you use your rinse water to mop the floor, right? Because you couldn't really afford it. I mean, using bottled water to mop. I mean, seriously, like it was really because there were chemicals in our water, and no one knew what the chemical reaction would be with that chemical and like household chemicals. Like that's how I developed adult onset asthma, was chemical exposure from our water. So I mean, we learned a lot about rainwater collection, things like that during that. So it's very stressful. You know, people are just like, well, what's the big deal? It's very stressful. Bottled water is expensive. When you think about all the things you do, you think about how much water we use in a day. It's very stressful. It's very detrimental. So, you know, things fall out of the national media very quickly, but we can't forget about what is happening in the communities around us. We can't forget about the people in our lives who are going through these things, whether they're directly in our lives or we've seen them. You know, little Miss Flint, I thank you for your activism. 8 years old, and she's right to the president, well, I know you're busy, but we really need you to come here and see what's happening in Flint. I mean, how many of us take the time to write anybody in an elected position to express our concerns about our community? But at 8 years old, she felt it was very important to make sure that the president came to Flint. Now, again, I criticized him a little bit this morning because I'm like, oh, so, you know, little kids got to kind of guilt you, put you on Front Street. But I'm proud of her. You know, as a mom, I'm very proud to see kids speaking out, see activism. And it is good that he is going. You know what I'm saying? He is going. And hopefully he'll be able to use his role as president. He'll be able to use his office, the bully pulpit, to make sure that Congress does right by the people of Flint. And we can all help by making sure our senators, because it doesn't matter what party a senator belongs to, it doesn't matter what party you belong to, they technically represent everyone in their jurisdiction. And this is a public health issue, and right now at this point it's a human rights violation, quite honestly, and it should not be allowed to continue to go on. You know, we spend money, we can donate money to charities bringing clean water to other parts of the world. We definitely can make sure we have clean water right here in America. I mean, our activism can't just be about election time. It can't just be about making sure we fit certain talking points. Our activism has to be about bettering the lives of others and all of those around us.